Hi, everyone. Welcome to another typology interview. We have Asees here. I just want to say before we start, I'm going to take a bit of a 2 week break and I'll be back afterwards with some more interviews. But welcome, Asees. How's it going, man?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
Am I saying your name right?
Yeah,
Okay, cool, man. So you're really young. You're like 17. Last year of high school, you told me.
second to last.
Second, wow. Yeah. All right. You're a young guy, man. You're getting into this stuff really early. So, like, where
Yeah.
did it start? Like, when did you start all this?
Objective, this sort of self help train, or just
Self, yeah, sure. I mean,
realizing.
anything that got you to MDTI, Dave Powers.
Um, uh, I was really interested in like those silly online tests. Like,
Right.
what's your IQ, or what hamburger are you, or something like that. Not because I thought that they were useful or anything. I just thought that they were fun, and the IQ tests, those were challenging, if not accurate. Um, but then that led me to 16 personalities.
Yeah.
And then I didn't really think much about it. I think I got INFJ
Right.
the
Did you
first
think it was
time.
like all of those other silly tests online sort of thing? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I saw the numbers,
Right.
and because going back, I looked at the numbers just recently. I'm like, oh, wow, that's a lot of numbers.
Hmm.
Um, but I didn't really think much of it back then, like you
Yeah.
said. And then, so then that was a long, long time ago. And then,
Long time
in,
ago. It's got to be less than
yeah,
17 years.
yeah, maybe like when I was in middle school or something.
Right.
And then,
Okay.
um, I think maybe last year, um, yeah, one of my online friends sort of reintroduced me into it, because that fell off my radar. And so then I took it again, and then I was like, wait, there's something here. Like, this
Yeah.
is weird. And then, so then I went on YouTube, and then I looked at like basically every single MBTI video or something, but it wasn't making sense to me because uh, it seemed like, because I was trying to understand what the functions were after I found out that there were functions,
Right.
and then it the definitions were both, um,
Contradictory.
yeah, they were contradictory among people, and then everybody would sort of contradict themselves,
Oh, yeah.
to some extent. And so then I was like, well, then what is this? And then I found uh, Dave, Dave's
Right.
YouTube, and then I was like, oh, this is just absolutely brilliant. You
Yeah. Yeah.
know, they were clear, concise, so that was obviously good thing number one. But then
Is this the
they
new stuff or
actually
the
made
old
some,
stuff that you saw?
uh,
Or a bit of both?
not the like 5-year-old stuff or
Right.
something.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
when he like just restarted, like.
Right. The channel. Yeah.
Mhm. And then so I watched that, and then uh, so I had like maybe like a few months of videos or something to
Right.
watch, and then when I watched all those, I was like, well, guess I gotta wait now. And so then I remember I was scrolling on his channel one day, and then I saw the his banner, and then it said .com, and I was like, no way. So then I went to the website, and then there was just so much more stuff there, and I was like,
Right.
this is awesome. And so then I immediately asked my mom if I could join the class, and she said yeah,
Right.
um,
Are you still
because
in
I
the
was
class
being,
today?
yes,
Okay. Cool.
yeah. And she was super supportive about it,
Right.
because
Awesome.
at the time I was doing this other thing that would be similar to it. And so she was just like, oh, you want to initiate that? I will completely support you. Um, and so, here we are.
Nice. Awesome. Okay, so I know a bit about your type. You're lead NE.
Hmm.
You're an ENTP and you have blast last. Those are the three components I know. So we'll discover the rest as we're going.
All right.
So tell us a little bit about your NE. How do you see it express itself?
Um, at its core component, I sort of see NE as like uh, wanting to understand everything, but then
Right.
that's sort of uh, filtered or tempered by my TI. Um, and so any will sort of generate or gather or whatever it wants to, but then the TI will sort of um, say yes or no, and by working it out, um, and so then those kind of work together.
Right.
Um, but it's sort of like I'm not. It sort of seems like where other people would see something as just a thing, I sort of see it as like uh, what it could be. Like let's say there's a problem or like something breaks or something,
Right.
and then you need some sort of substitute. It's like I'll probably be one of the first people to find that substitute just because I'm
Okay.
not, it doesn't seem like I'm limited in that capacity.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure that's a bit anecdotal because everyone can find substitutes for things, but yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah. So, like, what kind of potential do you see in things? Like, do you remember a recent moment where you saw something and you saw its potential?
Um, the the OPS system
Right.
uh, would be the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
My sort of opinion on it is that the the sort of next step towards understanding it um, as a system would be is inside of it. Like there's something that's um, like hiding that we need to like unturn or something. Um, so I've sort of been doing that, and I found that I'm not quite ready to share it just
Right.
yet because I'll look like
Last
a
thoughts.
massive idiot. um, but
Are you
I
consuming
think
sleep?
yes,
Right. Yeah. So
and
then
so
consume sleep play.
yeah, so once I work out exactly what I want to say and all of the connections, so that I don't have any blind spots, then
Right.
um, I'll maybe I'll come back to the Facebook group, post it, share it with Dave
Is
and Shannon.
is your any masculine or feminine?
I'm pretty sure it's masculine. That's the one thing that I sort of feminine sensory or masculine sensory is the one thing left that I have to really understand.
What did you
Um,
get back from Dave and Shannon?
I haven't. I've talked to them. I've talked to
Okay.
Dave twice, and
Oh, okay.
so he told me he didn't tell me my sensory sexual,
Right.
but I've talked to it with my friends, and they seem to agree towards masculine intuition. But if I want to like objectively type, I understand that like if I don't understand it, then I can't give them a clear picture of what
Right.
either of those are. So then it's that's just sort of like that's most likely what it is.
So tell me about your any then in relation to how movable it is. Like, do you see it latch on to patterns that you find, or do you see it find
Hmm.
general?
That's the one thing that really stood out to me and my friends especially. My best friend especially. He I I asked him whether or not I use the sensory to like in general whether or not I use the sensory to then build a pattern,
Right.
or then I have like, oh, this is what's happening, and then I find the facts to sort it,
Right.
and then
That's any over SI though. Yeah, that's any over SI. I think they'll all do that a little bit. They'll come to the
yeah,
understanding
but
first
then
and then find the sensory. Yeah.
right, but it's like um which but then it was also which one is more movable. Like I'll make a point, let's say in an argument, like this is just an example,
Right.
and my other friend who's he seems to be probably a censor, and he'll be like, no, that's wrong, and I'll be like, okay, that's not the point though.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so it's like, it doesn't matter whether or not my sensory was incorrect or not, because that's not, what I was.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I get the same thing too when talking to people. And if I wanted to also give over a point and be like, okay, so the sensory was wrong, but you get the point. So that happens to me too, and I have a feminine NI, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
So
still
yeah,
have more to understand about that.
yeah. But you could be right. I just don't know how anecdotal
Yeah.
it would be. Yeah.
Yeah, I have some other things that lead me to it, but
Yeah. Yeah.
still.
Yeah. Cool. Well, good luck with figuring that out. Maybe we'll talk about it in a bit. So then your TI, how do you see your TI express itself? I guess you're using it in two animals back to back. You're going consumed.
Hmm.
So that's double activating your TI there.
Yeah. It the it really seems like whenever I work through something that I'll be aware that I have to um, get the sensory, the intuition obviously comes somewhat naturally, but the um, the sensory, it seems like I'm aware that it has to be there to support it, but not. But I'm just completely inept at that.
Yeah.
And so,
How do you see that
and
play
that's
out?
also um,
Give us some sensory.
the. I think I got one actually. There was this one time I was in debate, um, and I was talking about why I think the minimum wage should be abolished.
Okay.
It's a pretty strong statement, but I just
Yeah.
want to start the conversation. Um, and so she came at me. No, sorry, I skipped. There's this girl who I suppose that triggered, and so then she came at me, um, sort of with the view that I didn't give a crap about workers or anything,
Mm.
and so she was like, the minimum wage is there to support people among lots of other loudly spoken things. And then, so I didn't know that. And so, I just had like this sort of idea. I didn't even check the facts. Well, I didn't
Right.
even, that's just kind of something I threw together last minute. Cause that's event was a more casual thing. So I thought, all right, I already did the formal. Let's see how well I can manage the casual. Did not manage it well at all.
Mm.
But then, so that's something that I've still been looking into. And what I found out was that that wasn't necessarily the case. Um, that it happened um, to get us out of the Great Depression,
Right.
but that didn't actually work uh, as well as it intended. Um,
Mm. So tell me, like, is that a disrespect of the sensory, or is it more a disrespect of maybe your consume? Because like you're supposed to be lead consume and have done your research before, like you blast, right? Blast
right.
last. So you shouldn't be feeling comfortable blasting. So how do you think? Why do you think you were able to not do the research before going to that event?
Um, well, because it wasn't something I didn't like the debate class that much. I thought it would be something a lot more useful than it actually ended up being. It ended up being one of those throwaway classes. Um, so then I didn't feel compelled in general to try because there
Put the
wasn't.
effort, yeah.
Yeah, and then as well the uh, there. So this was a later event. I think it was the second one, maybe the last one as well. But the first one, um, um, the first one was a more formal debate where you would like write pretty much everything, and then the only thing that you would be sort of uh, what's the word um, ad libbing, let's say, would be the rebuttal
Yeah.
and the sort of final phase.
Yeah.
But I decided, well, I can do that because I did that pretty well, and so then let's see, what the next step is. If I can sort of go in with minimal um, writing, have a sort of outline, but not a word for word. and let's see how well I can get my idea across and how well I can, address the points,
Yeah.
being a more casual situation. I guess I wasn't ready for that.
Right. So I see here you're giving over a sensory, um, what happened, this, that happened, that happened, that happened, like a sensory report sort of thing. And
Hmm.
you seem like it's really important for you to get all of the facts straight. And like you said, you even went back. You're like, I skipped ahead. Like I got to go back, like on another story too. When you're giving your sensory in general, I guess. So it seems like you are working your SI in some way.
Yeah,
Have
the
that sensory report
that
give,
yeah,
yeah,
it would be. I think they talked about this some time
something
ago.
from sleep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it would make sense, if I just said, one thing and then I just finished, just kind of
So
like that. I try really hard to make sure that I am clear. That's sort of the first step. Get the ST, and then I can
right.
uh, the SF would be the next thing that I work on.
Do you when you remember a sensory event like that, do you also remember your intuitive moments at the same time during that event? Because that whole event was supposed to link to some intuitive example, right? Like an example for an intuitive comment you gave earlier, right?
You mean like why I was giving it,
Yeah, I'm
or
trying to get
or
to it.
in the example why I was
Yeah, when
saying
you're
what I was saying?
reliving, like you had to relive it to be able to say it at least in some way, right? The experience.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
the debate experience.
the remembering was,
Right.
I would say, pretty general, but even in that capacity there has to be some sort of structure.
Right. So when
Otherwise,
you're remembering all of that sensory information, does the intuitive information also come back at the same time?
yeah.
Yeah. So
I mean, because I mean, at least in this
this
uh,
example.
example, the intuitive aspects of my argument were pretty much the entirety. And what the story is basically about how I didn't do um, how I well how I didn't do my demons, or more accurately, how I wasn't prepared for, I sort of skipped levels in terms of my progression, and so then that was a sort of a humbling moment.
Right. Do you get tidal waves from the sensory like other than that, or is that like a good example of
Hmm.
a tidal wave too?
Yeah, it's sort of the other best example would be uh, grades at school. Um, um, I don't. There are lots of reasons why I don't care for school, but one of them is that I don't. Excuse me. Um, is that I don't like the grade system in general.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that it's, at some level the best thing we have. I haven't thought too much about that because I'd rather not think about that, school.
Yeah.
Um, but it's not, it's like the whole environment, and my whole experience with that is so like um, tainted, let's say. So it's like I have little motivation, and then when the teacher is really poor, I won't try at all. Like I won't do the homework. I won't even remember it. Like I'll forget the class. Like my physics class, I notice this, and it's kind of annoying because now I'm like almost failing or something.
Oh, really?
But like, yeah, because it's just like I completely forget about it the moment I go to the next class, and then I won't remember that I have it until I'm back in that class again, and it's like crap, you know.
So,
Um,
so do you find that it's true that you have to put in the effort to refine the sensory in order to remember something? Like the intuition isn't enough to remember; you have to
yeah,
ground it. Yeah.
um, in some regards, I'll do my math homework um, because I like math, and then also the teacher is nice. I found that um, at least like in this regard, whether or not I remember to do my work is like a lot of that is attached to how much I like the teacher or not.
Yeah.
Because in elementary school, I had I had some really bad teachers, um, and some bad moments. So um, it's sort of just like I think it's something that I developed where it's like, if I don't like the teacher, it's like block it out, But it's like I gotta. That's not an excuse.
Okay. What about your FE? Do you want to go over that pretty quick? See, do you feel like you're a double decider? Are you able to go into
Yeah.
your FE a little? Yeah.
hmm So the thing that really got me to understand how I was a double decider was um, my band. So in 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 my district, you can't be in band without being in both marching band and concert band. And so I didn't want to be in marching band. Um, and the only reason I was in band anyways was for my friends. It was sort of a way that kept me with my friends.
Hmm.
Um, and so that'll and so then that explains once you hear this why I've quit band now. Um,
Okay.
but uh, ninth grade, um, the last day of the first week, I sprained my knee really, really bad, and it was completely swollen, like the whole kneecap, and then like a few fingers in each direction. It was like a ball, and so then I couldn't do the rest of the summer band camp because I couldn't walk, and so then
Right.
that persisted throughout really the whole year. Um, so I couldn't march, and I got a lot of hate for that because people thought that I was faking
Right. Yeah.
because of the duration of the injury. But
Are you
it's
better
like
now?
no, I
Okay.
know what the problem is, but because we can't afford physical therapy,
Right.
I can't. It's just not something that can get better. Um,
Do you do
and
exercises it for it? Like even do you look online for exercises you can do and stuff?
I have exercises,
Yeah.
but because I'm not um, going to do something that's going to make it worse because
Right.
I've tried that and it
You made it
it didn't
worse.
work. It didn't work
Right.
out well, and so
Sometimes things
uh,
get worse before they get better, but I get you. Yeah.
yeah, you know, and maybe I can do that now because I don't have a social group to worry about.
Right.
Um, but
So yeah, continue your
and,
story. Yeah.
yeah, where was I?
You hurt your knee, and people thought that you did it on purpose to get out of band camp. Yeah. Marching band.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, right. And so then, um, in order to, oh, right. In order to get the sort of stigma off my back, I thought, all right, this year now, the next year, I thought that what I would do is I would show them that I'm not faking it. And so what I decided to do was march in spite of my injury, and that was not a good idea.
Okay.
Um, uh, for many reasons. One was that it made my condition worse um, because it extended the time into the year that I would have been walking normally.
Right.
Um, um, and then also, I didn't anticipate that people wouldn't believe me because they'd be like, "How are you? Why are you marching
Right.
when you have this?" But it's like, weren't you saying, getting, but
Yeah.
um, and so then that year as well, that was the sort of a defining year because in ninth grade I was in the second band. You can't be as a freshman, you can't get into the top band because you don't have the experience to handle that. That's what they said. They changed that this year.
Yeah.
um, but in 10th grade, so then I was in the top band now. And so then I was on the top the head director's radar. Um, and so he gave me a lot of shit, um, and most of that stemmed from um, his his assumption of what my injury was.
Right.
You know, and how I figured that out
You couldn't just
was
bring
that
like a doctor's report or something and
this year I did,
okay.
and well, he still made me come to the practices.
Yeah,
So
so
that's like I'm
it
just
sounded like you needed both of those, the S and the F together. Both of your demons needed to come together,
yeah.
show them
Hmm.
show them the right
Right.
evidence so that they would, yeah,
Hmm. But what's how this is um how this demonstrates whether or not I'm a
double
or
decider.
how I'm a double decider, um, is is that the social component, it didn't really phase me all that much. Like I remember it, but there were times where I handled that appropriately, and when I go back and I look at it, that's not what I was complaining about. What I was freaking out about. I was freaking out about my head director controlling me and being stupid,
Uh,
and and not listening to me, and not like he was abusing his authority. And what I thought, and what I still do think, is that stemmed from his lack of understanding of my situation. um
okay.
because he assumed, oh god, um yeah, this had to have been 10th grade. He he assumed that because I used my girlfriend as a sort of a crutch, that I was faking my injury to get sympathy from her,
Uh-huh.
because um, I was limping more. But it's like, well, I'm not going to use my knee at all when when I have something else to substitute for that. So, and using another person is somewhat awkward. So of course I'm going to be bobbing more. And so, and even if, um, uh, I mean, we've been together we're still together. It's like, it's over 2 years now. So, I mean, it couldn't have been for sympathy at the very least.
So how is this a
But
double decider?
because I freaked out. So I said that,
Because you freaked out about the control. So it's more like a single
right. And
observer.
so this was, I was sort of trying to explain how he was uh, controlling me,
Right.
um, without understanding the situation. Um,
Cool,
so,
man. Yeah. Thanks for sharing.
mm,
I think we touched on everything. Is your identity masculine or feminine? We didn't touch on that yet.
masculine.
Masculine identity and feminine external extrovert identity. So you don't feel like you push on the tribe. You feel sturdy though in your thoughts.
Yeah, it's kind of annoying though, because I'm trying to sort of find a nice medium ground,
Yeah,
but
you got time,
sometimes
man. You're 17.
yeah, yeah.
Cool, man. Anyway, thank you so much for coming out, Asees. It was great talking to you.
Yeah.
Great to meet you. Yeah. Have a
Nice
good
to
one,
meet
man.
you too. You too.
Yeah.